Is the new RB22 an engineering masterpiece, or Red Bull's biggest mistake in the hybrid era? Can Max Verstappen really win with a car as unstable as it is innovative? And most disturbingly, is the three-time world champion starting to lose faith in his own team? In the industrial heart of Detroit, a place with a history linked to the birth of the modern automobile, Red Bull decided to raise the curtain on what could be the most decisive chapter in its entire history in Formula One. It did so surrounded by the legacy of its new technical partner, Ford, an automotive giant that once dominated the world of competition and that now returns, not only as an ally, but as a symbol of an alliance that aims to mark an era. Under cold lights and with a staging full of nostalgia, the RB22 was presented, a car that feels different from the first glance. The metallic blue bodywork is not only an aesthetic change, it is a direct tribute to the Red Bull of 2005, the first car with which they launched to compete in the elite of motorsport. It is a deliberate nod to their origin, but also a statement. They have closed a cycle. They are no longer the bold newcomers challenging Ferrari or Mercedes with a borrowed engine. Now they are full manufacturers. Everything from the chassis to the power unit bears his signature. But beyond the spectacle, the scenery and the phrases carefully written for the event, what is really in the air is uncertainty. The RB22 not only represents an evolution, represents a leap into the void. It is the first car in the entire history of Red Bull racing powered by an engine completely manufactured in-house, without the technical supervision of Honda, Renault, or any other supplier. And in a year where the technical regulations have been completely reformulated, Red Bull has chosen the most complex moment possible to try to become self-sufficient. This RB22 is not just another car. It is the car with which Red Bull seeks to regain control. It's the car that can consolidate them as a dynasty, or destroy everything they've built from within. The context is as dramatic as it is real. And it is that latent tension that turns the RB22 into a machine that not only races against the stopwatch, but against its own history. To understand what makes the RB22 such a feared and enigmatic machine, we must first stop at the technical context in which it was born. The 2026 regulations mark the most radical change in the modern history of Formula One, and it is no exaggeration. It is a total break, a restart that simultaneously affects the aerodynamic design, the engine architecture, and the behavior on the track. And Red Bull has decided to face this challenge like never before, building everything, absolutely everything, from scratch. The centerpiece of this revolution is the hybrid power unit. Since the introduction of hybrid engines in 2014, Formula One has undergone partial adjustments, but never such a drastic transition. Until 2025, the internal combustion engine remained the undisputed protagonist, with around 80% of the propulsion work. The electrical system, although crucial, was a supporting tool. Now all that changes. The new regulations require that 50% of the car's power come from pure electrical sources. And that fact completely transforms the way a racing car is conceived. The MGUK, the system responsible for recovering energy during braking, goes from delivering 160 horsepower to more than 470 HP. It is a colossal figure. To put it in context, a complete Formula E car generates that same electrical power. But this is not a lightweight city car. It is a Formula One that exceeds 300 kilometers per hour and must combine efficiency, stability, and aggressiveness. And this is not all. MGUH, the previous system that extracted power from turbo heat, has been completely removed. This creates a significant technical gap. The new engine now depends exclusively on the MGUK for recharging energy, which changes the driving style brutally. On routes with long straights and few braking zones, drivers will have nowhere to recover all their energy. And that introduces more demanding energy management than ever. The car is no longer driven only with the pedals and the steering wheel. Now each turn becomes a mental chess game. Each braking must be planned not only to take a turn, but to accumulate energy. Each acceleration requires deciding how much to release from the electrical system. And most importantly, when. The words of Ben Hodgkinson, head of Red Bull Powertrains, explain it with surgical clarity. The amount of power you have from ERS is such a big part of performance, and it can be deployed in different strategic ways. What he is saying, without saying it completely, is that this new F1 will not be won by the most powerful car, but by the one that knows when to use that power. And here a brutal paradox appears for Red Bull. They have the best driver in the world to manage this complexity, but they are giving him a tool that they have not yet mastered. As if that were not enough, the aerodynamics have also been redesigned from the ground up. DRS, that system that for more than a decade defined overtaking on straight lines, disappears completely. In its place, Active aerodynamics is born based on two configurations: X mode for low loads and Z mode for areas of high aerodynamic load. These modes not only modify the rear wing, but also the front wing, affecting the entire balance of the car. Changing between one mode and another can be done manually, as long as the straight line is longer than 3 seconds. This frees pilots from the strategic limitations of DRS, but also puts a huge brain load on them. The transitions are abrupt, especially during braking, where the ailerons must close in fractions of a second to avoid a total loss of load. Carlos Sainz defined it as a mental challenge that is unlike anything we have experienced in F1. And that's not all. Added to these two modes are 3 other key functions: overtake mode, which releases additional power when in the attack zone; boost mode, a kind of energetic wildcard that can be activated at any time; and recharge mode, dedicated exclusively to maximizing energy regeneration in certain corners or partial acceleration phases. Managing all these variables at more than 300 km per hour, with 19 more cars around and constantly changing strategies, turns each driver into an engineer in real time. And this is what makes the RB22 such a challenging car. Because it is not enough for the car to be fast. It has to be consistent. You have to respond on time. And above all, you have to forgive mistakes. And at the moment, the RB22 does not seem willing to forgive anything. The RB22 was conceived to mark the beginning of a new era at Red Bull Racing. But after the initial impact of its presentation, the reality in Milton Keynes is being much harsher than the team expected. As the work on the track deepens, the promise of a revolution is transforming into a disturbing sense of vulnerability. From the first tests, both in the simulator and on the track, worrying patterns emerged. The car is fast in ideal conditions, but extremely difficult to tune. Small changes in configuration produce unpredictable reactions. The RB22's operating windows are so narrow that even slight variations in runway temperature, side wind or power load conditions take it out of its optimal range. What was once one of Red Bull's great strengths, its aerodynamic stability even on highly demanding circuits, now seems to have vanished. One of the most symbolic technical decisions of the change was the abandonment of the iconic pull rod front suspension system, which had been key to the dominance of the RB18 and RB19 during the ground effect era. Now, the RB22 opts for a more conventional double wishbone suspension. But the change has not given the expected results. Sources close to the team indicate that this choice was due not so much to a search for performance, but to the need to adapt to the new mass distribution parameters and the integration of the electric motor. In other words, it was a concession, not a choice. This change has had a direct impact on the driver's feeling, especially in high-speed corners and hard braking zones. Max Verstappen, known for his ability to exploit the limit of the front axle without compromising the rear, now finds himself with a car that understeers more than usual and that loses traction if too much is required in combined braking. This unbalanced characteristic not only affects performance per lap, but also compromises the Dutchman's aggressive style, forcing him to modify his way of attacking corners. And that loss of confidence is filtering beyond the cockpit. Red Bull's internal environment has begun to fracture. The departure of key technical staff over the past year, coupled with tensions following the leadership scandal that broke in 2024, has left scars. Helmut Marko and Christian Horner have tried to maintain the narrative of stability, but rumors of strategic disagreements are persistent. The pressure to prove that the RB22 can perform has exposed failures in internal communication and has set off alarms within the team. And among all that technical and political chaos, there is a figure who observes everything with an increasingly critical gaze: Max Verstappen. Although in public he maintains a firm stance, in private, the 3-time champion has already shown signs of discomfort. It's not the first time he's done it. Already in 2024, after the drop in performance of the RB20 and the internal problems with the political wing of the team, he made it clear that his permanence was not unconditional. His father, Jos Verstappen, was even more explicit when stating that Max wants to win. He is not here to make numbers. If Red Bull cannot guarantee him a winning car, then he will have to look for other options. Let me know in the comments what you think about all this.